Alright, so I stand here today because I want to talk to you about one concept that I was alluding to in a different video, which I wanted to cover, and that is how to listen. Now, before I dive into the subject, let me warn you, I cannot get this on a sophisticated level or dive really too deep, I can't dive pretty deep, but I can't dive extremely deep to the point where I have a concrete like if you're looking for a formula, you're not gonna get that. I am, as of today, am not capable of giving you a step-by-step formula of how to deal with the art of listening, right? Because at the end of the day, everyone's at different starting points. I can just offer a generalized concept, which then you must research about yourself and then mold it to your life on how certain things fit, right? And how you identify yourself is also a very important metric. So I want to start off with this point that Jordan Peterson said, where, all right, it's not even something that he said, but just titles that he had in one of his books, 12 Rules for Life. All right, that's what's called, right? 12 Rules for Life, yeah. I have the book right here. I'm not gonna because I don't know exactly what the whole copyright rules are in this, so I don't want to get struck because I did something stupid. But basically, the title of this rule is: assume that the person you're listening to might know something you don't. Right? And then the first two words after that is not advice. And then he goes on to mention that advice as a definition of trying to actually shortcut your own listening and instead trying to associate a quick response so you can get them out of your way. And that is something I must work on, because personally, me, for a while, I've actually had tough development of figuring out how to listen and take other people's word and accurately, for starters, and valuably, right? That's a word. Yeah. Valuably for... Shoot, lost thought. Give me a second. Lost. Why did I lose thought? I hate when I lose thought. It doesn't happen too often, but it just gets annoying. But what I would say is that not advice, and then I was talking about how that. Oh yeah, I want to work on this myself because I find that I can be sometimes too egotistical and block out certain metrics of how things operate, and then I might overlook something and do some stupid mistake that I should have seen before hindsight, right? So that's what my one main point was here. But now I want to present to you the reason why you should learn how to listen, actually how to listen, right? Because obviously we have ears, you're listening to me right now, so that makes you somebody who's listening in arbitrary context. But how well you're listening, we must understand that as a different metric. So if you want to go about trying to find how to properly listen and what molds for yourself, like I mentioned earlier, then you're going to want to figure out what flaws in the listening concept are you dealing with and what your actual, first figure out what your actual goal for listening is. Then you can figure out, this is the flaw I have, let's fix it, right? Because if you don't have at least some type of goal, you don't need to make a SMART goal or anything, but if it helps, sure. But just make a goal I want to be able to apply someone else's advice better than instead of ignoring it, right? There's like a certain type of listening. And then how you're going to go about it, next time you hear somebody try to give you something, try to apply it right there and do it, and then see the results for yourself, right? Now then you're showing to the other person that you, not only you care about their opinion, but you're willing to give the genuine effort for their word. And that is a value exchange that not many other things can provide. And that is one of the, I would say, one of the very positive things about communicating in a modern era, right? But it often gets overlooked. So I would say be careful of that when you're figuring out how to listen. Be careful of your ego, because it can be dangerous, but it can be good too. Like, you have to, it's complicated, but just make sure that you aren't taking too much and shifting it into your own parallel or your own reality, right? And I feel like that is also a very useful skill in learning how to listen, is blocking that, not the ego, like, because like that's kind of more obvious, but like block out the person that's trying to identify the scenario and whether it succeeds or not in your head, right? Like I was mentioning Peterson, he talks about, and he makes this one point of where people make like avatars of people in certain scenarios, and he goes on an example about like two kids talking about jumping off a roof, right? And what he means by this, from how I interpreted it, is that when you are thinking of something to do in either present or future tense, you then in the present think, okay, what's going to happen? What can theoretically happen? But oftentimes you're led to think of the worst case scenario, right? And within that thinking, you go convoluted, you miss details, you get stressed out, maybe even hormones are released, which that would be probably a bit of an extreme, and you probably need to like dial it down a little bit. But like, if you go down that path, then you end up basically not even doing it and just compromising because of some arbitrary theory that you came up with 30 seconds ago. Like, if you're going to do that, you have to at least ask yourself, did I miss anything, or can something else happen? Right? Specifically, if something else good can happen, rather than thinking always negative. So, and that has to do with how to listen, because if you go down that path, which I just mentioned, you will end up, like I just said, convoluted and not being able to make an accurate point. Not only that, you won't actually be able to listen to the other person because you'll be overthinking in the present. So what I mean by block that person out is not like entirely out of your life, but like in a conversation, unless you're talking about, unless the two of you are or group of you are physically in a conversation about a potential scenario, like the two kids about jumping off a roof, then you could probably deem it okay to like let that side kick in. But if you're just like sitting there trying to talk about something, and you go down this scenario of like, I want to lead the conversation like this, and you're thinking, how do I lead it like that, instead of just talking and let the conversation flow, then not only do you get less value out of the conversation, you also probably feel miserable trying to put that much mental energy into just talking, right? Rather you're trying to teach instead of being open to change. And if you become capable of achieving that, then I think you really hit a good spot in life, and then you can learn so much more and understand a lot better, and just you'll gain probably a lot more respect from people too. So I wanted to bring that up because how to listen is pretty good, and I thought that was a really good point that I got from this book right here. I don't know, can you read that? Because, like, it looks inverted. It's like, I don't know. Like, I can read it. But I don't know if it comes up. Either way. So, now that that's been covered, I would say, is that? Oh, that's nasty. Sorry, I just noticed something. But I would say, if you wish to now set a goal for yourself to learning how to listen, I would recommend to make sure that you go into a full depth self-analysis or introspecting to understand what your goal in listening is. Maybe it's general, maybe it's more specific. And then how you're going to do that using practicality and don't even like apply what I said earlier about like going to scenario, apply that to yourself as well. Like if you're trying to talk to yourself about something, don't like automatically let your subconscious take over. Like we have a conscious being, and a lot of people I feel don't use it properly. So if you do, you probably gain a major advantage above most people. And then obviously being able to do that is a different topic, which I'm definitely not capable of doing because I sometimes suck at listening. But like I mentioned in a different video, learning by teaching, it's that same principle, right? Like that's what I'm doing here. Like maybe someone else can offer a different perspective and I can be like, oh, that's interesting. Never thought about that before, right? And maybe I do something with it, maybe I don't, but at least you now have the choice of doing that, right? And even you could do this yourself too if you wanted, right? Like, I feel like most social media is often used for bad things, so I personally don't indulge in it that much unless I'm learning like something from like YouTube usually, because then I'll see people like Jordan Peterson. Actually, I don't really watch Jordan Peterson. I just read his book, but like I read or like listening to people on like topics that they know about or like they like you can tell that they're credible in, then that helps you understand it, and it also helps you probably with your listening skills as well, because then you're interpreting something and then you want to obviously make sure that you're not interpreting it wrong, so that way you get more out of it essentially, right? So yeah, I think that's really valuable, and I hope that maybe you learn something and take away from what I just mentioned. But let that be known that you don't want to become I think if you become over exaggerated on like how do I actually do it, and then you go down a confident path, but like make sure you don't downweigh yourself, right, in the process. So sorry about that like kind of darkish note, but I just wanted to make sure that at least a general like just kind of like windshield wipe type of perspective was covered on how to listen, because I believe that's a very important subject that people must learn about, at least in a generalized concept. But I recommend, if you want to learn more about it, go get this book and then specifically read Rule 9 if that's what you're looking for. So yeah, that's gonna be it for me though, and I hope you enjoyed, because I certainly did. I thought this was pretty cool. So that's gonna be it for me, man. Peace out.